Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Finally Quit Porn podcast. Today I'm joined by Mary Paulus. Welcome back, Mary. How are we doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thank you. Doing good, especially after last night's England win. So very, very well.
Right. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, by the time
So
this
fun.
goes out, we're either going to have won the Euros or we've lost the Euros in the final. So let's see what
Fingers
happens.
crossed for you.
Fingers crossed. Thank you.
Yes.
So yeah, we just come off a Liberation Day call. What we do when we work with clients is we basically have a Liberation Day call, which is the day they actually choose to stop correctly for good, having learned the Beyond Compulsion method. Now, throughout these Liberation Day calls, we ask clients to read out their remember letter to us. A remember letter is basically a letter that you write to yourself, which helps you really think through the consequences of looking at porn and get real about this addiction as well. Because what happens in addiction is people try and pretend like they're fine, like they don't have a problem, like they can just engage in this and control it. But that's not the reality. And we see that through, well, we hear it through listening to these remember letters. What I'm going to do is I'll start off by reading the client that we've just had. He said, yeah, we can read this out on the podcast. So I'm just going to read out his remember letter. I think this will be helpful to people who may be going through the same thing, just to kind of maybe resonate a little bit. So before I read, actually, Mary, did you want to add anything to that, what I just said about remember letters?
Well, it's just critical documentation of what people are no longer willing to live with, documenting that big picture reality of what it's like to live with an addiction in their life, and because, well, a lot of times people feel like, oh, we don't want to think about the negative. We just want to have positivity and positive affirmation, positive visualization, blah, blah, blah. But it's really critical to correctly install into the neural pathways the reality of being stuck with an addiction in your life. And that's what the remember letter accomplishes. So yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's go. So, an insatiable yearning for more, never content with what I have, self-sabotaging behaviour, chasing the next thrill and avoiding the present, delaying the inevitable, which is the overwhelming come down that will happen if I stop, a body riddled with shame and exhaustion, decades of burnout, an inability to take joy or satisfaction from community and nature. Activities that once felt nurturing and comforting have gradually become more and more banal. The fear of being alone, afraid that when left to my own devices, I will find a way to continue to engage in the compulsive behaviour that has thrown my life off track. A longing for companionship, yet uncomfortable in the presence of a romantic partner. Feelings of disillusionment in friendship. Hyper commentary, I can't read that word, on friends.
I think is what he said.
On his friends' actions, and almost used as a justification to isolate and engage in the compulsive behavior. So some junky thinking there as well. Yeah. Feeling bored and impatient in the presence of friends, driven by cravings of the next fix, irritability and hypersensitivity, taking things personally and fixating endlessly. Lack of colour, a life of apathy, driven primarily by a history of chronic illness, with compulsive behaviour used as a coping tool to combat the uncomfortable physical and emotional sensations in my body. A craving for a steady state, yet a persistence returning back to compulsive behaviour that is ultimately denying myself the ability to live my life to its fullest potential. So that was the client's remember letter.
Yeah, I feel like people sharing this reality, being willing to share that reality opens the door for others to be able to admit to themselves, that this really is the reality, because they're always going to have the addictive part of the mind trying to minimize that reality, and it's effective, it's like, oh, everybody's doing it, it's no big deal, it's just the way it is, it's you know, relationships are hard anyway, so I might as well be doing this, and, you know, all of that. And you have that, you know, someone else being willing to really document that, I think it's really, again, opens the door for people to get real with themselves. And I think the other reason that people deny this reality is because they feel like there's no way out. So they don't want to look at that and go, oh God, yeah, this is my life, because they think there's no way out of it, you know? So why would you want to like accept, like, okay, well, this is really okay with me. You know, it's when you think you don't have a way out, it kind of puts you between a rock and a hard place, you know? So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's an interesting point. Yeah, if like you don't feel like there's a way to live a life other than the remember letter, then the most easy and natural thing to do is to just pretend the remember letter doesn't exist, like pretend that that reality doesn't exist
Yeah.
for you, and just continue sort of getting by and not really feeling or thinking about that reality of how bad the addiction is. I mean, on that last call, there was a moment, I doubt you would have noticed it, but honestly, I was like just feeling so sad for a moment. I just filled up with like compassion, because I was just like,
Yeah.
geez, like the way this has impacted this guy, it just relates to me so much in like so many ways.
Yeah.
There's something that he said about how, you know, so often just kind of feeling uncomfortable and not wanting to go and be on your own, because you have that fear that if you're on your own, you're going to get into
Yeah.
that compulsive state. You have that learned helplessness, which we've talked about so
Yeah.
many times now, but like basically being taught that you have to avoid triggers and that you can't actually handle your emotions, or you can't handle having desire. But that's just not the reality for anyone. Like anyone always, at any moment, always has a choice. They engage or they don't engage in their compulsive behavior. They either strengthen or they weaken the addicted neural pathways. And when you really, really realize that, and you have that remember letter and also a benefits list as well, because, you know, we don't just bang on about all the consequences. There's so many benefits to going beyond compulsion. But
Yeah.
when you have that side by side and you make that choice over and over, you do gain that permanent mental freedom. And then it just becomes almost automatic. Like you just know in your mind, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, we were talking earlier about dating apps as well. And, you know, I used to be on the dating apps quite a lot, and I'd just kind of, well, not quite a lot, but I'd go on them for like a week or two and I'd just engage in
Yeah.
them loads. And then I'd delete them and I'd say, yeah, I'm never going on that again. At this point in my life, you know, maybe I'll go on them, maybe I won't, but I think there's a very, very small chance I'd ever want to actually go on a dating app again. And that's only because I'm out of this addiction now. And now from this different new perspective for me, it's like, why would I want to go on a platform where you're just like compulsively objectifying people and sliding across and seeing them in this like really weird way where they're like
Yeah.
just like the commodification of like people, like they're just these like objects. It's just so wrong. And yeah, I think like when you're out of the compulsion, you just see the world a little bit differently in some ways like that. And it's just interesting talking about this dating apps earlier as well.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, like we were saying, that there's dating apps that are maybe going to be, I mean, where they're very focused on long-term relationships, and where they have like full-on questionnaires where people really need to engage with what they want, and versus Instagram, you know, or whatever. It's like, believe it or not, I don't think that is meant to be a dating app, but it is now, you know, and it's like there might be dating apps that are useful, you know, but I think it would be really great if people could get back to being out in the world where, you know, there's not one client we have that doesn't mention isolation as part of the addiction. One of the costs of the addiction is being isolated, but yeah, and also uh dealing with the addiction and dealing with the compulsion and creating those new neural pathways where you're able to make a choice for yourself in the moment based on your long-term health, happiness, and peace of mind, then you're going to be in a much better position to not get into a relationship that doesn't serve you in the long term as well. Because someone can come along and you feel like compelled, like, oh yeah, well, this person, ooh, you get that, ooh, right? But then you look at the list, it's like, oh, okay, wait, they don't have a job. They they they, been in jail for, whatever, just the list of your deal breakers. And then you're able to think through that moment and not take that next step and get more involved with the person that doesn't serve what you want, what you're not willing to live without. You can make that list, and doing the addiction work is going to serve that long-term, the long-term possibilities. But the other thing we talked about in that call that I thought was very important is, especially for the porn addiction, well, not just for porn addiction, but for all of it, all the addictions, is, when you're in it for so long, you don't know, what is my life? Who am I? I mean, what are the possibilities? But so then people end up staying in an addiction because they don't know the possibility, when what we do is we focus on the limitation. Okay, there's that remember letter. Here's your limitation. You're not happy with this behavior. So let's get through the withdrawal process, get to the other side, and who knows what possibilities are going to open up. It's I got a little bit off the track there, but yeah.
Yeah, well, just a couple of things for me on that. It's like the first one, talking about like the relationships again. Quite enjoyed recognizing last week when a client asked me about dating, and I was like, yeah, so at the moment, I am seeing somebody, and it really is just a complete matter of take it or leave it. As brutal as that sounds, she was messaging me last week, like, yeah, she had some plans in the evening, but we were kind of talking about maybe she'll come around, maybe she won't, but there wasn't really any feeling in me of like desire for her to come round. There wasn't any compulsive desire. If she comes round, oh, nice, I'll get to spend some time with her. If she doesn't come round, okay, great, I might go to sleep a little bit earlier. It's like, you just take it or leave it. It doesn't really matter to me either way. And I think that was probably in the context of talking about sex, actually, is that when you go beyond the compulsion and you're out of that desire, that's just like so driven, you're obsessed, you're compelled, you're just thinking about it all the time. Like, how do I get sex? How do I get sex? Whether it's like a dating app, whether it's porn, and we're talking about like orgasm instead of sex. But like when you're in that addiction, all you can really think about is where's the next orgasm coming from? And it doesn't always present itself that consciously either. It's almost going on this like subconscious basis for some people. Although, saying that now, I'm sure you're going to have a response to that, which I'll definitely agree with, that can be some kind of junky thinking. It's like, this is going on in the subconscious, when the reality is actually you have a lot more control over it than you think, right?
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, that's the, makes me think about people saying, well, I just went on autopilot, it's my subconscious. Well, it's, if you're really that out of control that you just run in your subconscious, well, you're kind of a danger to yourself and society. It's like, get a grip. No, so but the script brings anything that might be kind of lingering under the surface up to the consciousness, right? So that you are able to make a choice in the moment. And I think that that's really key. I mean, the girl you're dating, if she listens to the podcast, she might not want to hear that. You can take it or leave it.
I was thinking the exact same.
But,
there's no way she's listening.
In this context, I mean, it's actually really good, because if she'd actually be in a worse position if you were trying to work out some compulsive desire through a relationship with her. If you can take it or leave it, that you're fine on your own doing whatever. And if you take it, well, then you're going to have a real nice time with her, and who knows how that develops. But it's not based on trying to work out some compulsive sexual drive or whatever. So if she does listen to it, she can take some faith.
Yeah, when I say take it or leave it, in case she does ever listen, amazing girl, beautiful, really like her. So we'll say all that stuff now. But no, the take it or leave it's definitely in the context of the compulsive desire. And I think that's the difference between the compulsive desire and the spontaneous desire, because it's definitely about the sex in particular. Is that like in the past, I remember I would be like so driven towards like, right, I really want to like see this girl and I'm going to have sex with her. And I'd work it up in my mind. I remember this one girl in particular where I'd been talking with her on a dating app, and we basically planned, this was like in the peak of addiction for me, a few years ago. We basically planned out having sex, and I was just like going around in my head, like thinking about sex, gonna go have sex with this girl. Go around to her apartment. She's like just in her bed, and she's basically just waiting for me to go and have sex with her. Get into the bed. Lo and behold, you can probably guess what happens. Erectile dysfunction.
Erectile dysfunction.
Like, I could not have been less erect. It was like one of those moments as a man, like there'll be some men out there listening who resonate with this, but like when you're really, really cold and you're just like the absolute opposite of erect, I was like that with this girl because it was so compulsive. I'd just been going round and round in my head, thinking it through, thinking. I wasn't even that attracted to it. There was no romance there. There was no real spiritual or emotional connection, like I do have with this girl that I'm dating at the moment. You know, it really is on an intellectual level that we're connecting. It's not really just about the sex. So yeah, it's just so weird to kind of contrast like that experience a few years ago in the peak of addiction to like where I am now. And it is nice to kind of be grateful and think, yeah, I have gone beyond that compulsion, and now it is just a case of, okay, I'm going to be grateful for anything that comes my way, but if it doesn't happen, then that's cool as well. And I think that's what it's about, really, is being content. I've been thinking about this recently. It's like desire and addiction is, you're always discontent because you're always wanting more. You're in that dopamine desire circuit of more. And it's like, how are you ever going to feel content if you're always wanting something? Because wanting something.
Yeah, that's the nature of addiction. It was the first line of the Remember letter you just read, wasn't it? What did it say? Insatiable desire, right?
Yeah. So
it's insatiable, and you want more and more and more and more.
And the thing is, it doesn't go away, because when you give in to some junky thinking, bullshit excuses, and you do go and actually engage in the compulsive behavior, that just creates more of the desire. So it will never be satiated. That's why it's insatiable when you're in the addiction. But the good news is this can all be reversed due to neuroplasticity and making that conscious choice, A or B, over and over again. You get to a place where you're not even going to want the compulsive thing anymore. And that's when you're content. And that's when, you know, you are just living life quite freely. And it's just like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. You know, contentment is a really important word, a very important state that I don't think we talk about enough. You know, contentment is just really, and that's take it or leave it, you know, where you just are content pretty much no matter what happens to you. Or if you do want to go engage in whatever it is, it's like, it's a choice. It's not, if I don't do it, I'm going to feel uncomfortable, you know. It's like, and then you can really benefit from things that you do. Like, I think about like food compulsive people with, you know, healthy eating and exercise and stuff like that. It's like, instead of like, they feel uncomfortable if they don't like engage with the food in the way that they do or whatever. And then they try to treat it with these other things. And then it doesn't help them, right? But then if you get past the addiction, then you go do these other things and it's really beneficial to you, right? Where if you're trying to do it to deal with an addiction, it's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you've got the wanting, whether you're, right, so let's say you're in a porn addiction, you're going to want the porn. And let's say you're like, okay, well, I'm going to go to the gym because I want to use this sexual energy in a productive way. That's the sort of BS junkie thinking people come up with. Go to the gym, but that has nothing to do with that desire and wanting that's going on in your brain. And then you're going to go home and the desire and wanting still going to be there because it's a different path in the brain. It's a different circuit. So, you know, doing all these different distraction techniques, you're not actually going to enjoy them, or you're not going to get free because you're still going to have that wanting. So yeah, as you say, you know, the wanting is going to exist. So even if, let's say, instead of the gym, it's like you're going on holiday to like an amazing place, and it's like you could go anywhere in the world, but if you still have that wanting and desire, you're still not going to be content. And what you want to do is get to a position where you could be anywhere in the world in some, maybe not the best circumstances even, and still feel content, just knowing like, okay, well, at least I don't want anything in this moment.
Yeah, people try to get like real extreme distractions, like even you know, geographical. I'm going to move to some, you know, other part of the world, and anything to like to try to get away from that compulsive desire. But then they get there and they find out, oh well, I'm living in this beautiful island and whatever, and but I'm not content because I still have this desire to deal with, so it's really one of the benefits that is so crucial. It really is. I mean, you're willing to accept the discomfort, get through the withdrawal, and then just contentment is underrated. It really, we're so driven now. Everything is just so, woo, in our face, and contentment is really underrated. I mean, I guess we call it peace of mind. It's kind of similar. It's always one of the number one benefits that people are looking for is peace of mind, where you're not always driven by the next way you're going to change the way you feel, because the way you feels pretty good, Yeah. And then you engage in other things and it makes you feel good, but not in a way that's temporary relief from compulsive desire. You actually reap the benefits of the choices that you make to do other things, when you're not doing it to try to distract yourself. Yeah.
I've always quite liked maths, which is a bit weird, but I remember, So no, it's not weird. I don't know why I said it's weird. I've always liked maths since I was quite young. I think the reason I said it's a bit weird is because when I was at school in England, we've got this weird sort of culture where if you're like into education, then people will kind of look down on you in a way, like, oh, you're trying too hard. And it changed as the years went on at school, but people didn't like the kids that did well at school. So I didn't do that well at school. I did okay in the end, as the years went by and people started to actually think, education's a cool thing. But anyway, point is, I liked maths, and with the reason I bring this up is because it's like when you're in the addiction, it's almost like you're at the negative. So let's say you're at minus 100. And like doing anything enjoyable, it's almost like just trying to get you back up to zero, or engaging in the compulsive behavior is trying to get you up to zero. That's the way I'm seeing it now. Whereas when you overcome the addiction, it's like you're always at zero. And then it's like you do something fun and you're just going up to like 100, It's like anything else is then a benefit, but it's like you're never going to get into the minus again. Like you may feel some discomfort, you may feel some challenging emotions, but you're not going to go so low down into like a minus 100 that you then feel like you need some crazy compulsive like thing to take away this like pain. You're not going to need some massive lift because you're actually going to be quite steady already, so you don't need anything else. And I think that's the thing with withdrawal, is it's like you're going to struggle a little bit because you're going to start off on like a negative, and that's why we talk about being proactive and actually taking control of yourself and not having these like passive ways of trying to change your brain. Because if you're already at minus 100, then distracting yourself and removing the triggers and having the blockers and all of that stuff isn't going to get you back up to that steady like zero. You're just going to be staying at minus 100, maybe gradually going up like to like minus 50 or something. I don't know. Does that make any sense, or am I just talking rubbish?
You were kind of no, you're good. But it made me think about, like when people are in the withdrawal and it's like they're not really seeing the benefits yet, right? But I mean, even just when we have a Liberation Day call, that's the day that they stop, and then we teach them, we get everything pulled together for them to stay stopped correctly moment to moment, right? I mean, even on that day of that call, they have a very critical benefit, which is I don't have to figure out how I'm going to stop this behavior. I mean, how many times have people thought, oh my God, I got to stop this behavior. I'm going to figure out how to stop this behavior. I'm going to go online. I'm going to try to figure out, it's like this nonstop conflicted mind, it's like get that benefit right away on Liberation Day. You don't have to figure out how to stop the behavior, right? It's like there's nothing left to figure out because all the work is there. It's documented. We do it all through the process. And then it's just a matter of using it, which at that point, people they're gung-ho. They're like, yeah, give me this. Let's go. Let's get it, So it's, for sure. I don't know what that had to do with what you were talking about, but Something made me
I
think
think
of
it's
that.
probably for the best that we went away
The
from some
numbers.
weird
It was
numbers.
the minus 100 to, yeah. It's
I
like
guess it's to do with withdrawal though. Yeah.
when there's nothing there that they can go, okay, I'm already feeling this good, you know, about this, and this. There's that already. You've stopped the behavior. Thank God. And you don't have to figure out how you're going to stop the behavior. You know, it's like people don't realize how exhausting that is to, you know, even if it's running on a subconscious level, you know, it's like, oh God, I got to figure out, I'm going to stop doing this to myself, you know? Yeah, getting all that documentation out on paper and it's all there is like, yeah, it's good stuff, really good stuff. So I love the Liberation Day calls.
Yeah.
They're really, I mean, I just feel so happy for our clients, you know, it's like, yeah, here you go. And they generally feel really happy too, you know, even though what's on the horizon for them is withdrawal, you know, discomfort, and they still are like, they're ready to go and they're happy about it. So that's cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to put it down on the end of our Liberation Day call just then, but I was like to the guy, I said, all right, I love how enthusiastic and excited you are right now, but you know, in a couple of days, you're gonna have some junky thinking, and just make sure you message us still because we'll be there to help you. But you know, going through the withdrawal, going through the junky thinking, it's not easy, but it's very, very simple. That's what I would say. Because once you have your scripts, it's very simple.
And being prepared is like night and day. I mean, if you're I, you know, knowing the addictive part of the mind the way I do after 35 years or whatever the hell, I've been doing this a long time. It's like, I know how the addictive part of the mind works and how shrewd and tricky it can be. But I just think, like, how on earth do people get free of addiction at all without that education? You know, it's like, it's quite shrewd, but again, it's finite, you know. But when you don't know about junky thinking and you don't know how to handle it, you don't know how to correct it, you don't know how to deal with it, that's just got to seem like, oh my God, you know, it's going to come and just bombard you with all this bullshit until you're just like, fuck it, you know, I'm out. And you're into your compulsive behavior again because you don't know how to deal with it. But, you know, it's, yeah, there's no way you're going to outrun it. There's no way you're going to not think about it. So think about it correctly and get free, man. Yeah. Too much addiction in the world, Tom. Too much. Yes.
Big time. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, let's wrap it up there.
Yeah. Hopefully people have been encouraged by this letter, you know. You're not alone feeling that way. And yeah, call us up, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So thanks a lot for listening or watching. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.